Hello, Artem. Welcome to the show. So happy to have you on today.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Excellent. So we're going to jump right in. Can you tell me what is Sembly AI and who do you serve?
Sembly AI is an AI teammate. We serve all working teams and individuals who attend meetings of any kind.
So it's recording meetings, transcribing meetings, giving you notes afterwards, etc. It's an AI assistant that specifically is focused on meeting efficiency or.
So everything you said is true. We like to think about it a little bit differently, rather than think about the different functions. So it's like if you think about a computer, you can say it's a tool that does spreadsheets and word processing and browses the internet. But there's also a way of looking at it that says it's a technology that creates opportunities for immense productivity gains through automation, connection, collaboration, digitization, and et cetera. Right? There's a much bigger picture. And the way that we look at Sembly AI is in the same way. So very intentionally, we say it's an AI teammate rather than an AI meeting assistant. Also rather than a meeting recorder and transcriber. And the reason for that is that Sembly, although it does do all the things you mentioned, it attends meetings, it can record them, it can transcribe them, but as a platform, its main idea, kind of purpose of existence is to naturally flow into your meeting workflow or your day-to-day working workflow, and become a very natural addition on your team. And then there's things you can get from that. So yes, you can get a recording, you can get transcript, you can get automatic meeting notes, you can also get tasks, and you can also talk to Semblane, which is our AI chatbot, about the meetings you've had. But then that's just the beginning, because think about, okay, now that you have meetings, tasks from your meeting, you can have them automatically appear in your to-do app. So we provide integrations. You can connect Sembly to your to-do app or your task management app. And at the end of each meeting, your to-do app is updated with all the tasks from that meeting. And then there's more and more and more. Slack, Notion, others. And so it really opens up this realm of getting the immense value from what was discussed in the meeting. Not just kind of as a person, you want to keep track of the points that were made and the follow-up items that exist. But now the AI understands what actually happened in the meeting and can do a lot of useful things as a result.
I love that positioning, AI teammate. This touches on a question I was going to ask later, but we've kind of jumped into the deep end, so let's go with it. Right now, there are so many AI tools that are popping up that are highly specialized, and you can really level up pretty much every area of your day-to-day work with these assistants. However, they're all super specialized. So even, for example, Assembly, you talked about it as a teammate, but it's limited currently in its form today to meetings specifically, whereas you're going to go from your meeting to Google Docs or Notion, and they're going to have an embedded AI in there. And then you're going to go do research and create a presentation. It's going to be a different model. How do these models start to talk to each other so that we can get exponential value from the shared knowledge that if a meeting recorder can synthesize all of my project notes in Google Docs or Notion, it'll take much better notes and summarization and action items about the meeting because it has that context. So when do we get to that state?
We're in very early days today. The way I like to think about AI is it's a new kind of material that you can build new kinds of technologies with. In a sense, it's similar to, let's say, when carbon fiber was introduced. And so it's not that it's a new, different tech. It's a new material that enables new different kinds of functionalities and abilities in existing technologies, but also brand new technologies. And so it's not like we didn't have airplanes before we had carbon fiber, but now that we have carbon fiber, we have different types of airplanes and that can fly
More
further.
efficient, lighter, yeah.
Exactly. And then sports cars, et cetera, et cetera. And so it makes new kinds of things possible. It makes new reaches possible that weren't possible before. And AI is very similar. And so you should expect that there will be a sprinkle of AI, just like, let's say, there's a sprinkle of, I don't know, front end JavaScript in a lot of web apps. There'll be a sprinkle of AI in most technologies that you'll end up using over the next few years. And then that sprinkle can be like a little part of the tool that you use. It could be a big part of the tool that you use, or it could be the entire tool, like the case with ChatGPT. And then the kinds of use cases that are enabled, they could be everything from just better pointed understanding of the context, making the interaction more human, or delivering new kinds of experiences, like asking the AI to write an SOW for you based on the meeting you just had. This was a conversation I just had that I think people still don't get, still don't um, trust that AI can do really, really cool things. I constantly have these conversations. Just this week, I had two where one was with a infrastructure services provider, and I told them, and they're in the process of writing up an SOW that we're working on as well. And I told them, hey, we have this meeting. Now you just go into Assembly and you ask it to write an SOW based on the meeting we just had. And they're like, oh, no, come on, Artem. Come on, Artem. There's no, come on. No way. Like, yeah, the way, and do it and see how that goes. And I think we'll see more and more of that. Another conversation I had was with a mathematician PhD who was writing this like complex paper with all these like formulations and things. And he's like, oh, there's this section I need to rewrite it. It's hard. I don't know. Like I'm like, you just ask the AI to do it. He's like, nah, come on, Artem. And we had a very similar conversation there. I pointed him at Nougat, which is a new development from the Meta Group that is working on a better understanding of research papers through like AI-enabled OCR, and then opening up content from research into these large language models. Something to also understand is that we're in such early days, like the quality, quote unquote, of the carbon fiber of AI, and for all intents and purposes, the carbon fiber today is large language models, which are these kinds of AI technologies who are really good at predicting the next word based on some context. And so these large language models, they're in their infancy. This is the first year of what we'll call like the first set of mature large language models. This is the first year, guys. Next year, it's going to be way better because these technologies are improving by leaps and bounds. There's huge investments and a lot of teams involved in getting these technologies better. And next year is just going to be year 2. Now imagine year 5, imagine year 10. I mean, these things are going to be phenomenal, and the quality of that carbon fiber is going to continue to improve and create new opportunities. So your original question was like, when are these things going to talk to each other? I think not yet. I think it's a little early for them to actually kind of have meaningful interactions in any kind of way, or integrations in any kind of way. But everything is heading that way. And one thing that I talked about with the team, this was years ago because Assembly started in 2019, that, not too far from now, you'll have meeting agents that can meet with each other without humans needing to be present. And that's very real, and we're not that far away.
Yeah, a little scary to think about the implications of that, but I don't think we're that far away. And you're absolutely right. If you look at Stable Diffusion on the image generation side, what it's producing today versus a year ago, night and day, right? And the language models comparing GPT-4 with what they released 2 years ago, or with BART and some of the earlier models, like just night and day comparison. Let's look under the hood a little bit to how Sembly works, because we talk about AI as kind of this single thing, but obviously it's not just one model doing one thing. When you're talking about meetings, you have natural language processing that's doing
diarization. There's natural language processing, yeah,
diarization, and then you have the language models that are generative AI that are doing summarization, translation, things like that. So can you kind of walk through the different steps in that process under the hood of what the product's actually doing in the different models or types of AI they're using there?
Sure. So the first thing that we're really good at is connecting to people's calendars. So we support Outlook, we support Google Cal, and we then see your agenda for the week, and we can show up in meetings as you'd like us to. So we can show up in all of your meetings, we can show up in just a subset, depending how you configure. And when I say show up, literally show up. The way Sembly works is it's not a record button on your browser or anything like that. It's a virtual attendee of a meeting. So you'll see someone in your lobby, like your Sembly teammate or however you name it, is wants to come into your meeting, and you can let Sembly enter your meeting, and it enters just like a human would. So it attends like a human. You can kick it out of your meeting if you want to have a super private conversation. So the scheduling bit and the attendance bit are very complex and very important. And so we attend Google Meet meetings, Microsoft Teams meetings, Zoom meetings. So all the major platforms we can attend. When we're in that call, the teammate just sits and listens. I mean, it'll announce itself, but it'll just sit and listen, and then stream the content of the meeting to our cloud or to our customer's secure private cloud that we have different deploy options for. Once we're streaming, a few things happen. So first of all, we understand over 35 languages. We're also unique in the market where we do a really good job with mixed language meetings. So you can have a meeting in English and French, let's say, like go between the two, and that will be fine for Sembly. That's okay. So Sembly is kind of bilingual in two languages that you choose. So it's like English and one other language, let's say. So behind the hood, there's a mix of ASR automatic speech recognition models that we use. There's kind of a matrix. We have a proprietary solution. We also have a matrix of providers that we use, and we apply some magic sauce to do a good job at transcribing the stream content. There's a bit of things you need to do to actually do a good job, especially in a mixed language environment. There's proprietary models, also AI, that we use to distinguish languages. So already at that point, like in the very, very initial point, you're already like touching a bunch of different AI models for a recognition and understanding. From there, so we mentioned diarization. Diarization is attributing spoken word to different participants. So we have a proprietary diarization solution that we use to do a good job at understanding who said what when. So it's not just speaker one, speaker two, but it's Artem and Moshe. Once that happens, so the text is transcribed and diarized, so we knew what was said and who said it. It's compiled and then it's processed by the NLP side of our system. And so there, again, a portfolio of models spring to life. We use some foundational models, so we work with GPT and others. We also use proprietary models that we've developed internally, and those are primarily used to create the analytics or the insights for meetings. So this is everything from meeting notes to tasks. We have a system that we call Smart Tasks, which we believe is the most accurate task identification system in the market today, which includes like task description, assigner, assignee, due date, everything like that. We also understand issues, risks, decisions, and a few other key items from the meeting, a little bit of sentiment, and all of that gets generated and then compiled into a meeting set that our users can access from their web app or their mobile apps. So roughly that's the cycle.
And then you can follow up with questions, requests, additional items afterwards with the chatbot that's available in the product, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So we have Sembly. Microsoft is in the process of coming out with Copilot. Google has Duet. These are all great. They're really cool in that they sprinkle through your tools, so through your Microsoft Office tools or 365 tools, and through your, let's say, Google tools. Sembly is an analog of that. One benefit of Sembly is that it works across different conference platforms. So even if your company standardized in, let's say, Teams, you're going to have clients who use Zoom. So you're going to have Zoom meetings. So what are you going to do? Sembly is the way to address that. And then there's some things that Sembly does that these Copilot and Duet products don't do at least not yet. And yeah, Sembly in this, you can just talk to it about the meeting you had. So like, let's say you want to get like a specific insight, like how much did the salesperson say this plan costs, all the way out to like suggest the agenda for the next meeting, all the way out to like create an SOW based on the meeting I just had.
Fantastic. How do you think about competition and differentiation in the marketplace? AI right now is flooded with lots of great ideas and fantastic new technologies that are emerging, but specifically in the meeting sidekick, if you will, space. You have, for those that have been listening to the pod for a while, our first episode was with the founder of a company called TLDV. They do meeting recording and similar kind of note taking. There's Fathom. You've got sale in the sales arena. You've got Otter and Dialpad and some others. So how do you think about competition and what's your differentiation in the marketplace?
Very familiar with TLDV. That's cool that they were your first. We like our cousins in this space, as I like to call them. When we started, we were one of very few. We started before TLDV, and Otter is kind of the grandpa in the set. So yeah, TLDV, they have a very fun marketing strategy. They're very TikTok oriented, which is cool. That's not really our bag, but I like it. I think it's fun. The way I look at the space is we think of it as in three different categories. There are the personal note takers, there are the sales oriented note takers, or note takers, I guess. So the personal assistants, sales oriented assistants, and then there's everything else. And the everything else, there are different kinds of working meeting categories there. So Otter has their history actually in the personal side. I think they're trying to kind of extend into other areas. Products like, and then TLDV is more personal oriented as well. Then there's products like Gong, for example, who have their history in the sales side, and they're trying to extend to other things. We've always been in that last category, which is productivity for working teams broadly. So we're not sales specific. We're not individual oriented, although we do have a lot of individual users. Our focus is on providing value post meeting, and the kind of the core idea is that the meetings you have for work are there so that you can get something done later. Otherwise, it's just a meeting to have a meeting. Yes, there's informational meetings and things like that, but they still facilitate work that needs to be done later. And that's what we're focused on. It's like what needs to happen after the meeting for your team, your department, your company to be successful. And that is the ultimate goal of Sembly, is to help companies be successful, starting at the individual team level. And so today, I like to say that all the products today are kind of babies in the sense that all babies kind of look alike, and then they grow up to be basketball players or like, I don't know, golfers, whatever. Actually, some of them are the same, right? Bad example. So basketball players and I don't know, horse jockeys. Exactly. Yes. Not to say that no neurophysicist can be a great basketball player, but yeah. So they grow up to be very different kinds of individuals. But like when they're babies, they kind of look the same. And we're in the baby stage of AI today, where companies are implementing the obvious low-hanging fruit use cases that are like super valuable and most accessible. And because of that, I think a lot of companies today are kind of, not companies, but a lot of AI tech today looks very similar. And I think that's just a factor of where we are in the development of and the maturing of this technology space. I think as you look into the next year and 2 years out, you're going to start to see some much more specialized offerings. And so for us, we're orienting towards enabling company success through AI, moving forward the work that needs to be done. And to that end, we already actually have some kind of R&D tech that we've been showing around internally, where you can imagine that if you have AI kind of participating across all of your work activity, specifically meetings, but even beyond, and then understands really, really well the tasks that come out of these meetings, like what are the ongoing tasks and what are the coming up. You can start to understand work streams. You can start to understand goals across individuals and teams. you can start to understand how how the attention invested towards those goals is aligned towards some high value, some high level hierarchy in the company of what it's trying to achieve. And so that's kind of the first thing, is that visibility of the alignment of how your teams are spending their time towards what your company is actually trying to accomplish. That's step one. Step two is going to be understanding and maybe even suggesting better ways of aligning towards those goals, being able to shift those goals almost on the fly, let's say in quick response to market events, a quick response to competitor events. And then, we're getting into a space eventually, not today, but eventually, where AI will be able to suggest things that you can do as tasks to better address company goals, to help you prioritize the tasks you're working on, to better reflect the priorities of your team, your department, your company, and then later for AI to actually pre-complete some tasks or execute on some tasks that it knows are going to be useful to help you get done what you need to get done. So that's kind of where we're going. And kind of very broadly, I like to think of it as organizations coming alive, where today they're kind of like these rusty robots that can do alignment. Like the very, very best organizations, and there's maybe a handful of them, can do it quarterly. Most organizations do it actually annually, where they understand how all the work is aligned to their major strategic goals. But that's like, that's like hitting a stone and it responding a year later. It just doesn't work. Just doesn't work to respond actively to the environment. By putting AI across the board in your work activity, your organization starts to become responsive, living, breathing thing, where something happens, the AI knows immediately about it and knows everything else that's going on, and it can start to kind of move and sway with what's actually happening internally in your company, but also externally in the market environment.
Yeah, that's your management consulting background coming through there. You're clearly
guilty. Discharged.
Yeah, so you're clearly thinking beyond meetings, right? As you said at the beginning, it's a teammate, and eventually it'll be doing a lot more than just what it's able to do today.
It's a teammate that also knows what every other teammate is up to, that attached to every other team. And then those teammates aggregate up to teammates that know what the department wants. And those teammates aggregate up to teammates who know what the CEO wants. Fantastic.
One more question on competition. How do you worry about the big guys, in the sense that, I'm reminded of this famous story between Steve Jobs and Drew Houston from Dropbox, where Jobs told Houston that Dropbox is a feature, not a company. And obviously he was trying to get Dropbox to sell to Apple. And we all know the history that they declined, and they're a successful company in and of themselves. So when thinking about a specialty product, do you worry that, hey, Zoom can introduce us in their product and make us not necessarily obsolete, but redundant, or even worse, like a Microsoft or a Google that already has that full suite? What if they introduce something similar? Do you think about that? How do you consider those the big guys, the gorillas?
Certainly, we think about it. We're not worried about it. Those products, it's natural, and I fully expect they'll introduce some aspects of this to their product, but it's very difficult for these companies to hit value point use cases in specific applied scenarios. So they, as conferencing platforms or as broad platforms in general, their stuff needs to hit the right note with everyone who uses that platform. That's very hard to do. That's very hard to make a pointed solution that does a really nice job, especially considering different application environments that their companies run. So the ability to work well with different kinds of workflows, different kinds of endpoint applications, that's a different kind of focus. And so if your focus is on building the best conference platform that has additional features, that's what you're going to do. But building a platform around AI that works with teams and helps them get things done, that's a different goal. So I don't expect them to adopt that goal. I do expect them to create amazing, cool features in their current conference platforms. But one thing they're not going to do is be able to be cross-platform, not anytime soon. I don't see that happening, right? They're naturally competing. And that's just like very foundational. But then there's other things, like one very hard problem to solve is the privacy problem. It's the first question we get from every single customer. It's like, well, how private and secure is this? The answer is very private and secure. We're a SOC 2 Type 2 company, and we also have, as I mentioned, different kind of deployment modalities for companies who really, really want to isolate their stuff. We can enable that. Um, but from a practical sense, meetings are interesting where everyone who attended the meeting is privy to information in the meeting, but then who else should be aware of this information? And then if you talk to an AI chatbot who's been to all the meetings, can it answer a question about another meeting that it knows about that you're not privy to? That's not something that the big guys on Zoom are going to be like sitting in the room trying to tech figure out. Those are very, applied scenarios. And so I can see them on a meeting by meeting basis doing more useful things than they already are. But when it comes to those kinds of details, you're going to run into some challenges that are going to be difficult for those kinds of platforms to tackle in a very pointed, applied way. So in a sense, it's actually cool that they're getting into this because that gives us more to work with to enable high value use cases for our customers. We already have like a really great side by side with all the Microsoft Teams and Teams related products. We'll be looking at Duet to see what it's doing. We'll be looking at Zoom to see how it's faring up. I think if anything, we're a great value adder to the conferencing platforms that exists by being able to like integrate to all these amazing workflows in an intelligent way. So it's interesting. I think it's also kind of interesting to see where and what directions things develop. I think it's very early days, and so a lot of things are still up in the air.
Yeah, you're absolutely right that the big cross or horizontal players, they can't be provide maximum value to each specialized use case. However, I have learned the lesson to never underestimate the power of bundling and monopoly pricing. That if they like what happened with Slack and Teams. Obviously, Slack is still a successful company, but distribution matters sometimes more than product. But you clearly have the vision beyond being a point solution. So there's definitely a ton of runway ahead in terms of opportunity and growth and embedding yourself in organizations. So let's rewind a little bit to the company Sembly that you co-founded. For a frame of reference, can you just give us a sense of kind of where you're at? I don't know if you can share revenue or just give us a sense of scale, number of employees, funding, whatever you're comfortable sharing.
Sure. So co-founded, as I mentioned, 2019 with Gil McLeod, who's our CEO. I'm the CPO. We worked with Gil for many, many years before. We both have a management consulting background. Gil has 2 prior exits in that space. So kind of, you're absolutely right. So it reflects how we think about this space very much. Where we are today, we're around 30 people, 30-ish. We have over 60,000 registered users. We are growing double digits monthly in terms of revenue, percent in terms of revenue. It's been a wild year, both in terms of the expansion of the company, because there's this was a space where no one really understood it before. And we were always challenged with, when we go to talk to companies, we have to explain to them what this is and why this is valuable. Whereas about a year ago, that formula inverted, where companies started coming to us and asking us for the product. And now that's happening in a big way, where we do very little, relatively speaking, like outreach or marketing. We have a lot of inbound interest, and our main challenges right now is keeping up with that interest. So companies come to us and like want to use this kind of product. There's not a lot of products like ours that can support serious working environments with all the security, privacy, and other kind of requirements like SSO, like authentication, reporting, blah blah blah, that companies have to be able to put this product into their midst. And so we are one of the few companies that can support those. And so we get a lot of interest. So that's where we are today. We're partnered with Philips. They make really great microphone devices. So there's the Philips Smart Meeting series, which is technology for the conference rooms. There's also individual products, something called DBT, which is like a personal recorder. And there's a really cool pen with a microphone in it. So now there's like a 007 pen where you can just write, but also it has a microphone. All those products are co-branded with Sembly, and the purchaser of those products get special promo to use Sembly, and the products work really well with Sembly across the world. So we have presence in over 100 countries. Our focus is around US, Europe. We have a lot of presence in UK as well, but we're actually present around the world. And so the multi-language facility really helps there. And so we've had a great partnership with Philips for a couple of years now. And they're selling in all the major online retailers. So if you want a cool pen with a microphone, you should, like, during your class, you should run out and get one as the school year has just started. And then we're also partnered with a company called MIGSO PQ, which is part of the Alton Group. So again, harkens to our consulting background. They're a premier management consultancy out of Europe, but also the PQ part has a US presence. And they've been a partner and a design partner of ours. And so we work with them pretty closely to kind of enable their work with Sembly, and also benefit their clients as well.
That's incredible. I'm very curious about those partnerships that you mentioned. On the one hand, it could be a huge boon for an early stage startup to get that, both that early revenue stream, but also the brand recognition and trust halo that comes with working with a brand name like Philips, for example. But on the flip side, when you're white labeling for a giant enterprise, or in this case a co-branded kind of OEM deal that you have, there's a ton of potential opportunity cost and risk in prioritizing all of your features and roadmap for them, as opposed to maybe your not direct to consumer, but direct to end user product led strategy long term. Do you see that as a conflict? How do you think about building features for Philips versus building Sembly for the users that you want to eventually, or maybe that's the long term strategy, is to be kind of powering the tools, whether it's the hardware tools or software tools, instead of going directly after the end users?
We see the hardware component as part of the ecosystem that Sembly enables. That's not the strategy. It's a strategy in a portfolio of strategies. Certainly, working with partners like Philips, first of all, that's awesome. You're absolutely right. And it also depends on the partner. Like, I think we just got really lucky. We had a really great vibe with the Philips team, and I think we just kicked it off, and it was very, like, it's just been great and productive and fruitful, and they're great to work with. So that's been good. But I think startups inherently is just like a game of managing risks and priorities. And so when you're investing in some partner-led activity, I mean, of course, there's a risk involved, but you measure the risks and you move forward. Some of the things we worked on with our partners bared fruit, some didn't. On the whole, it's been very, very productive and positive. So there's certainly a risk, but that's kind of what you do as an early company, right? Like, you have to make a bunch of bets and hopefully do a really nice job with those bets. And then the vast majority of those bets have to pan out. And then you can make the next batch of bets.
Yeah. So you clearly focus on enterprise, or decided to go after enterprise first, as evidenced by going for SOC 2, which I know is not an easy process, and some of the features that you have. Why start there? And any lessons that you can share, perhaps, that for other founders that are thinking about selling into enterprise, what have you learned that you can share with regards to that specifically?
All right, so that's a separate episode on its own, but I'll try to give you some key points. So first of all, one thing that we've learned through our journey is that even though we started to develop directly for the enterprise, specifically for enterprise users from the get-go, you can say, like, let's say after our MVP, um, it's not in today's product lineup, it's not viable to just go directly for the jugular, unless you just have like a core technology that doesn't have like a UI wrapper around it that just can kind of feed into another platform. But if you're building an actual usable application, and if that's your target, you have to build an app that individuals will love to use. And so you have to address the individual use case first, and then expand to a team use case, and then to expand to an enterprise use case. Because without those other layers, even if you get into an enterprise for a pilot, that pilot won't succeed because the individuals won't have a great time with your application. So going for enterprise, for me, means that you've checked off that you have a great individual experience, you have some semblance of a team experience, and then you can start to offer some elements of the enterprise experience. So it's something you pretty much have to build in layers. Again, if your product is going to be an end-to-end usable product, not just a component or a tech component in another system. So that's kind of one big lesson learned. Why we went for enterprise has to do a lot with our background. So we've I've led projects in Fortune 500, Fortune 2000 companies like that. That's also the network that Gil has. We understand that environment really well. Our network is in that environment. So you mentioned, distribution is often more important than the actual functionality, let's say. So that was the case. So we had an understanding of how to engage those kinds of companies, and also what those companies need as far as benefits from a product like ours. And just based on that knowledge, we started to address that environment. Yeah, I think, hindsight in 2020 probably wouldn't have targeted enterprise from day one. Probably would have waited a little bit, gotten that individual thing set up first, and then expanded. But I think we pivoted timely. We realized where we weren't getting traction and why. We've pivoted hard into a really awesome individual user experience. I'll claim that we have one of the best, if not the best, UI UX experience for our kind of product in the market. It's very slick. It's very minimal. It's very like Applesy inspired experience. Whereas like maybe in many other products, you'll have like a bunch of bells and whistles thrown at you, but you don't really know what to do. With Sembly, it's super sleek. It's simple. It's easy. It's really like human oriented. And then of course, once you start going, looking beyond and looking under the covers, you're going to start to find all of these team features, integration features for that large companies require, like let's say workspace level integrations, where all the meetings and all the tasks from your entire workspace, all your teams can flow into a third-party adapter that you have, or a third-party app that you use, like let's say, I don't know, Salesforce, Notion, whatever. That is something that we have available.
Such a good point. Even though you may have a product that's valuable to the enterprise, ultimately, if it's like you said, a product with a UI that team members have to use, if they're not enjoying that experience, procurement can't force it down anybody's throat, so to speak. If you want to get adoption, working your way up the food chain, some people call it selling through the basement, so to speak. That that's the way to go. Let's talk about meetings. People have a visceral reaction, usually negative, when you talk about meetings. Like, oh my God, I had a whole day of meetings, or like that meeting could have been an email, right? Most people have a negative association with meetings. Why do meetings suck for the most part? How do we fix that? Aside from using Sembly, what other tips do you have for folks that are trying to make their organizations, their teams, their meetings more efficient?
Meetings suck because they're attended by humans and not AI. That could be our soundbite. So let me take a little bit of a different stance. So first of all, I don't subscribe to the philosophy that meetings suck. I think some meetings suck, many meetings suck, and some organizations are notorious for sucky meetings. Sembly, in my company, our meetings don't suck. We run very so there's a cultural aspect. There's also The meetings have very clear purposes. They're very tactical. They're very they're oriented to results, right? Again, my management consulting background comes through. But a lot of meetings do suck. And I'm actually kind of half joking about the fact that it's because it's humans and not AI. I think there's a lot of course, human cultural reasons why meetings might be not fun. It's just very easy for this meeting scope creep and just meeting creep to happen in general, where you kind of forgot why you're there, or maybe you don't really need to be there, but because like there's like that's just been the tradition that you come to this daily or weekly, that you're going to be there. But there's all these memes out there, right? Like my contribution to a meeting, I don't know if you saw, it's like a guy sitting on mute for an hour and then he unmutes, like fake laughs, and then mutes himself again. And that's the big contribution. So I think part of it is cultural and just like the meeting culture in companies. And there are some companies that are trying to tackle that. And there's definitely a room for that. That's not what we do, but I think there's definitely room for that. But also, this other part where I say it's like humans and not AI. Look, if a person doesn't need to be there, why not just send your AI teammate to hang out in the meeting with you, instead of you, rather, not with you, instead of you. That's something you can do with Sembly. You can have Sembly go attend the meeting that you're not on. That's absolutely okay. You can even leave a little message. Hey, I'm busy. Make sure you cover this point. I'll look at the meeting notes after. And Sembly will come back to you after the meeting with the notes. So that it opens up a lot of productive time, where unless you're an important contributor or an input maker into a decision, or there's a clarification point, or you need to present something to someone or whatever, right? Unless there's those specific reasons why you have to be in the meeting, you probably shouldn't be in that meeting. Why? Like, don't waste your time. Like, if there is an active contribution or some kind of active thing that you need to be in the meeting for, why not have the AI be there for you? And I think eventually, not this year, but in the coming years, AI will start to represent individuals and teams in meetings, where AI knows what you need from that meeting, and it will go and get that for you. It's like, hey, Artem was waiting just on this deadline for this thing. Like, just when you have a chance, like, can you make sure to mention when that is, right? And that's it. And it comes back to me, and like, instead of me wasting an hour, it'll just send me a note. Hey, Artem, like, just went to this meeting for you. Here's that deadline that I know you need. And I'll be like, thanks, Sembly. And I just keep doing my work. So I think so. There's a cultural aspect, but also there's like kind of a lack of this kind of new technology that is coming on.
Yeah, I've done that. I don't know whether the meeting participants appreciated that I did it, but I've sent a recording bot to meetings that there was only a couple things that I wanted to check in on, and I didn't want to sit through the whole meeting. And I said, you know what? Let's let my AI agent do that for me, and I will catch up on it, in a fraction of the time. So I definitely see the use case for that. I hope my counterparts don't take don't take umbrage to me doing that, but I got to save time in the day, right?
They're just upset that you did it and they didn't, and they had to
they're stuck in the meeting
and you didn't. I think
right.
That's the only reason they're upset. I think if they could send their agents and those agents can represent them effectively, which will be the case, in not too distant future, I think everybody will be happy.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about the meeting scope creep as well. I used to have a rule with my team. If you're not learning something in a meeting or actively contributing, then you shouldn't be there. So just because you were invited to meeting, don't just show up. It happens so often, especially in larger corporate environments, that you just start inviting people. You saw that feature that I think was Shopify that integrated what was a meme that the people created this meme of like meeting cost in the invite, and Shopify actually did that, which I thought was really fantastic. So we're definitely heading in that direction. Practically speaking, in my mind, the three keys to a successful meeting to make the most of it. Obviously, we talked about it, making sure the relevant people are there and that you're not just there for no reason, but have a purpose to the meeting that's clearly laid out, preferably in advance of the meeting, right? An agenda that's structured, and then action items at the end. So it's clear of who's responsible, what the next steps are, et cetera. Anything else you want to add to that to make our meetings better?
An AI teammate.
And an AI teammate. Well, an AI teammate facilitates that because it can make the instructions clear. It can help with the agenda. It can do all of those note taking and action items as well.
There's magic that an AI teammate introduces that's a little bit unexpected. So I think that the goal of the meeting is hyper important, and that is certainly something that will be set by humans for a little while longer. But the meeting notes, the action items, that the AI is great at that. Sembly is great at that. And what it allows you to do is to it actually elates a kind of a fear and an anxiety. And what happens actually now is that if I don't have Sembly in a meeting, now I have anxiety about that because I'm so used to knowing that my notes and tasks are being taken care of that this allows me to do two things. First of all, it allows me to think more freely and discuss more kind of brainstormy, let's say, just be a little bit more thoughtful about what we're talking about rather than be like, oh my God, like I want to make sure like I can't lose this point. Like I never have to think that. I'm never worried that I'm going to lose a point. All my points are done. Like their Assembly's got all my points. So now I don't have to worry about it. So then that means that there's more of my attention can go towards discussion and creative solution and problem solving. The other thing that it does is it also look, we all can sort of like zone out in a meeting, or maybe we have a phone call and we just need to step away for a couple of minutes, like it's an emergency call or a doctor or whatever. That happens to everyone. Like human, like we're still human. Like humans have lives, and things happen. And so when you have Assembly on a call, that's not a catastrophic event. You have Assembly on a call, so you're like, okay, I'm gonna come off for a few minutes, have my call come back. These things happen. And then like I'll just take a look at the Assembly result after the meeting, just make sure I didn't miss anything. So it creates this freedom. It's a freeing technology. It frees you to do more high value things like and manage your time in a way that you prefer. So there's a lot of new freedoms that it introduces. Like I said, it creates the opposite anxiety where if you don't have AI, now you're like, oh, I have to start worrying about all these things that I kind of got used to not having to worry about.
It's kind of like we can't remember phone numbers anymore since all numbers are programmed in cell phone. I feel like very soon the art of note taking is going to go away because it's going to be fully automated, for better or for worse. I think mostly for better. So we talked about your management consulting background. So I'm just curious, what made you make the jump from kind of corporate Ernst & Young and EY, one of the biggest of the, one of the top four, the big four they call them. What made you make the jump from corporate to startup? And is there anything that you miss about it? Anything that you've learned in the startup world that you would take back to a corporate environment, and vice versa? Anything that you had to unlearn from your corporate days in your role as a CPO of a startup?
My background, I think, is more mixed. So I would I would a lot of times give preference to startup companies. So like very early on, I was the CTO of this like visual trading systems company that developed like on-screen trading applications for FX. Then I did management consulting. Then I had a stint with a startup. Then the consulting company I was in got acquired by EY. So I have a very mixed background in terms of that. But I dealt a lot with, I like to say that when you're in management consulting, especially like when you're like a project lead or like, like VP was my level, I was basically kind of you're kind of doing a little startup inside the client because the project is new. And you're always trying to understand, okay, what is the environment? What are you trying to accomplish? And you have to be really crafty and resourceful to get things done in every new environment that you engage. And so like every consulting engagement is kind of like a startup in a sense. So that's one way to look at it. I was at EY. EY is fantastic in many ways. I think it's mostly an individual character, personality, preference thing. Like I like to have a lot of flexibility. I like to have the opportunity to flex into areas where that are maybe could be risky or what have you. In large environments, there's always a kind of an element of alignment that's important to track in accordance to the overall company. Like you have to track to the alignment of the overall firm. So every firm has their brand, their kind of profile, their kinds of things that they're trying to do. And there's also a lot of overhead being in a large firm. Like you spend a lot of time like filling out, like I don't know, like some trainings and things,
Expense
and I
reports.
yeah, and like and then also like it's weird, but like look, I wear a hoodie. Like I'm not a shirt and tie guy really. Like I don't prefer that. Can I wear one? Sure. Like I do from time to time, but that's not just not my thing. I'm more of a like a hoodie and a t-shirt guy. Like I wear my kind of work uniform is like a V-neck black tee. That's it. Like that's every day, and jeans. So I think it's just like a personal preference. I like a lot of freedom and flexibility in what I'm doing. I also don't like to be like I like to solve problems um, by any means necessary. Where in large companies, not just in consulting, but in large companies, that's not always possible. You kind of have to navigate and solve in the way that's possible in that environment versus just kind of rip up whatever you need to rip up to get things done, which is kind of how I like it, right? Like a little more ruthless. So I think that's that. I'm certainly like more comfortable in a more of a smaller environment.
Got it. Awesome. Artem, I'm enjoying this so much, but I want to be respectful of your time. So we're going to wrap up with our lightning round. I'm going to ask you a few questions, 30 seconds or less. Give me the first thing that comes to your mind. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Awesome. What book, newsletter, and or podcast do you find yourself recommending most often?
The Big Picture by Sean Carroll.
The Big Picture by Sean Carroll. Quick blurb about that.
So Sean Carroll is an astrophysicist, and it's a great book about not just how the universe is put together, but also some great ways to think about things in the universe and life, like how to kind of decide whether something is true or not, and how to make up your mind about things.
Amazing. I'll have to check that out. Who's a mentor that's had the most effect on you in your life or your career?
Tough one. So Gil, who's my co-founder, has had a great effect on me. He before we were co-founders, he was the CEO in the company where I was a consultant, and so he certainly had a great impact on kind of shaping kind of how I work about things. Another one I had kind of random, but this guy named Anthony Chow, who was a senior leader on one of my projects at Barclays Capital, and he's just a force. And I learned a lot from him about how to uh, how to marshal massive teams to get sharp things done consistently.
Amazing. Last one here. What excites you the most about the future of AI, and what scares you, if anything?
I'm really excited about all of the scientific advancements that AI will allow us to make in the near future. Super excited on the biotech side, super excited on the material side, on the algorithmic side, on the mm, digital design side. Just it's going to be insane. I mean, you're going to have new chemical compounds that AI will be able to synthesize that we would never have been able to reach in our time. So, very excited for that. What scares me is bad agent AI. So you're going to have good agents, you're going to have bad agents, and AI is very powerful, and there's going to be powerful bad agents, and the hope is that that's balanced with a equally powerful or more powerful good agents to kind of counter whatever the bad agents are trying to do.
Because of runaway AI or because of agents employed by bad actors?
Um, Agents employed by the bad actors, I think there will be aspects of runaway AI. I don't see like Terminator 3 runaway AI, meaning like it completely takes over from the very top. Part of the reason is, at least for now, it needs compute to run.
So you're not worried about being turned into a paperclip?
Oh, right. Yeah, yeah. No, no, not anytime soon. Not anytime soon. I'll say one last thing. I think humans, we are awesome and we're amazing, but we're also flawed. And I think in some of the current events in the world that we see unfolding today, like the war in Ukraine, for example, is a good example of some deep flaws that we have. And it's not unthinkable that a really great AI could be, not like a more effective, let's say, like ruler, but at least like a great advisor, and someone who can something that can point out troubling factors or character traits that could prevent future world wars.
Yeah, I love that optimism. Artem, thank you so much. If you want to close us out with how can people reach you if they want to learn more about you or continue the conversation or learn more about Sembly, and any final words that you want to share with the audience.
Artem Koren, ARTEM KOREN on LinkedIn. Of course, go to Sembly, www.sembly.ai. There's a free trial. It's the professional plan. $10 a month now if you secure your annual, going up to 15 soon, so hurry up. And then only $20 a month for team plans. Check it out. Also on Twitter, Sembly_AI, or for me, it's @ClearlyKoren. Give it a shot. It's completely turnkey. There's no downloads, very easy to set up. And I hope that you will soon find it indispensable, as many thousands of our users already do.
Amazing. Thank you, Artem. Wishing you all the best and hope to stay in touch.
Likewise, thank you for inviting me.